Hi, everyone. I'm going to be joined today by Holly Kreps. So I'm going to just pause and wait till she arrives and add her. So today we're going to be talking about spiritual sobriety. Hi, there you are.
Hi.
Can you
Yes. Thanks
hear
for
me okay?
I can, and thanks for sending the link.
You're welcome.
Yes.
I just realized one, that wasn't an option last time I did a live, and
Okay.
two, I don't have headphones on, so you can hear me just fine.
Yes, I can, and I don't have them on either.
Awesome.
So
Perfect.
obviously,
Well, I can hear you just fine. And
great.
I have some notes pulled up of things that I want to talk about with you. But first, I just wanted to give an introduction.
Yeah,
So, with Instagram Lives, I don't know if you've done one
I
before,
have it.
but basically, Instagram records it and people can hop in live and ask questions, even here live if they want. So, if you're watching live, you can ask questions as we go if you have one. And then afterwards, I'll post it to the feed. And so then you and I will both have it in the feed. And the reason I wanted to go live, one, is because I just adore you and you've been a really big impact in my life over the last 6 years, which is wild, 6 years.
No.
And you are launching a program called Spiritual Sobriety that I took, I guess almost 2 years ago now.
Yeah, almost three, I think.
Wow, yeah, a
Something like
while.
that. Yeah, and it's changed a little bit. I think when you did it, it was the 6 month, and then from that experience, I advanced it to a year.
Yeah,
Which, yeah.
which I'm like I wish I had been in the year-long one because it was so good. So I want to know, if you were to describe what you do, just day in and day out and for a living and like as a whole, how would you describe that for people?
Big question.
Yes.
Thanks. Well, a couple of things. I'm the founder and co-owner of Circle Yogashala, and so I live on a working homestead, and we have residential teacher trainings and all of that in session all the time. But in addition to that, I work more as a contemplative teacher, and I don't know if anybody really knows what that means.
Hmm.
And so to be a contemplative teacher really means that my work is less about giving people answers and more about helping people access what is actually true inside them, accessing their own wisdom. I
Yeah.
know that when you were in the program, I'd often just ask questions back and ask questions back because what we're doing is trying to get through all of the scaffolding of the way in which we can't help but perceive reality and function and react to things, to keep dropping below that to be able to access something that's more essential and deeper and truer to reality itself. And so
Hmm.
that's really the work that I'm most interested in doing. And of course, yoga, certainly invites that. The tools that I use for the work is self-observation, self-inquiry, um, the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm pretty open about my own sobriety. I've been sober for, God's grace, which I'm not concerned about. It'll be 33 years coming up April 1st, which I think is
Wow.
pretty apropos on April Fool's Day.
Yes.
Um, but but I've also been a yogi, a yogini for over 30 years. And, my husband and I are both teachers of the Wisdom Enneagram, and we've been doing that work for close to 20. So these are really all tools that I use to help untangle unconscious patterns in people, in myself, that keep me in a state of seeking rather than, just a expression of living.
Hmm.
And so I hope I answered your question.
You really did
Okay,
so
good,
beautifully. And
good.
I want to just even, when I first met you and your husband Matt, like I had heard of the Enneagram. I considered myself someone who was doing spiritual work. I was like sober curious and, like just in general, weaving in and out of like physical sobriety, right? Spiritual sobriety is also a different thing. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But I consider myself to be someone who's deep in personal development. I felt really deep in some trauma work. Like there was a decade of really deep work like that I had done. And what I was finding was like, one, I was becoming more neurotic because I was becoming so aware of all of my patterns, but they weren't transformed. So I was like, I know how I should be. I know I'm doing all the right habits. I'm doing all the right things. I know some things about my Enneagram, but it was all this like disparate information and very personal development, self-help oriented.
Yeah.
And so taking the program, it was a really different way of things because like you said, it was contemplative, which I thought I understood before that, because also like one of your teachers is Richard Rohr. I loved reading his books, but there was so much information coming, and like that I also loved learning, that I realized upon joining the program that I really hadn't integrated any of that information. And so I'm curious for you to speak about kind of that transition from personal development or healing and self-help into this contemplative work, because that was a really profound shift for me.
Yes. So, the personal development and self-help is not wrong. I think, it's necessary, because we got to work with what is the operating system, and we are binary operating systems. I am an operating system for my survival. And, we don't have a question about that. That's the way that it is. But let's unpack that a little bit. So when it comes to self-help, we're really dealing with more ego-driven tendencies or ego-driven desires. And again, it's not wrong. Matter of fact, we need to actually do self-help and self-development so that we can develop a healthy ego. Because it takes a healthy ego to then include that, allow it, include it, and then transcend it. And so what does that mean to transcend? It means to go beyond that. It means to go beyond well, maybe we need to unpack what it means to be ego-driven or in personality alone. Another way that we say it is mind alone. And that's to be caught in that dualistic relationship of either or, right and wrong, this and that, good and bad. And we don't need to dispute, whether something is right or wrong. But a lot of times we're unclear about really, is that true? Because we're coming at it from my relationship to it, which has everything to do with my formative years, my family of origin, my past, my memory, my experiences. And so that's really going to be filtering and skewing my reality. And so I don't want to say that's wrong. I just don't want to say that it's completely true, because it's partial. So the work that I do is about, it's not separate from self-help. Matter of fact, it includes self-help, but then it goes beyond that. So it allows that. So we don't need to make what we've done wrong. We don't need to spend more time in shame and guilt and in all of those tendencies which come from the ego. We need to actually understand what the point is it's serving.
And I have a pause for you, Holly. Can someone in the comment let me know if you can hear Holly or if you can hear me?
So
it's buffering a bit. You're back. You're back.
yeah, I noticed that it was, I can hear you. Is it still buffering?
It's glitchy, but it's this way with the internet. Your picture has clarified.
Okay. Well, sorry about that. So I don't know what might have been missed, but you spoke about, I've done all of this work and I've accessed all these traumas, but yet I haven't integrated. And I find that that's usually the situation for most people.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to contemplative paths, most people think to be a contemplative is to be a monk or a nun, right?
Yeah.
And that's a very passive relationship. Like I'm not really active in the world. And that's not true. Contemplation is not involved passivity at all. It means acting with discernment. It means acting without fear, love without fear. It means a certain type of action that's accessing more than just my little specialness, my little preference and viewpoints, again, which we don't want to negate, but we do want to actually see through them for what they are, which is incomplete.
Mm-hmm. I think that piece was really a big turning point for me in the program, because prior to developing a healthy ego because of trauma, like I really had to spend a lot of time developing a healthy ego, realizing I can assert myself in the world, I can do things, I can make things happen. It was so imperative, especially given the trauma that I'd experienced. And starting to do some of that contemplative work, I was honestly scared that I was going to be gaslighting myself, because I'd worked so hard to have preferences. I'd worked so hard to have a self at all, that the thought of, could I be wrong about how I see the world? I was like, oh, how can I differentiate that from being told I'm wrong? And so there was a lot of work there for me while we were working together. And then even thereafter, of being able to see the way I'm misperceiving in a way that deepens my self-trust and doesn't negate my self-trust. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I love that. You're worried about gaslighting your own preferences. I appreciate that. People feel like when they do this work, they're going to have to let go of everything they love and everything they hold dear.
Yeah.
And that often they think that it's going to require them to blow up their lives. And so, and then some people who have done any type of, deep or, any type of spiritual, activities or done spiritual reading, they get hit with, oh, if I do this, and who will I be? And there kicks off a great, an enormous amount of fear. Who am I going to be? And they feel like that's where the feeling of is, I'm going to have to blow up my whole life.
I'm going to have to get divorced. I was like, for sure, I'm going to have to quit my business and be poor now. Like, for sure, I'm going to have to, like,
remember.
I was like, please don't make me give it up.
Yeah. And so what did you do? What changed then?
It's interesting.
If I can ask the question.
Yeah, you can. I'm like, the way that I work has changed.
Yeah.
Because I got more in contact with what I actually wanted. And so things about my work did have to change, because I got in contact with myself, and the way that my ego operates is kind of not listening to what is real for me. And so a lot of it was realizing that I could listen to myself and that things would be okay, that similarly I wasn't going to lose everything. But my relationship to my work actually got healthier, which is interesting, because the way I was operating from was a really scared place, and I didn't realize that previously. That, like, there was so much scarcity, there was so much shame, there was so much, like, constantly I'm doing something wrong, people aren't happy with me. And I think I've learned, especially being a public kind of person, there's a lot there that's difficult for me, having kind of that fixation. And it's like learning how to be with those automatic reactions without believing them has helped me from moving into action around managing people's experience of me, which means that my entire business is more aligned to me than just what other people want, because it was so stressful for so many years, feeling like I had to be everything for everyone, and then I was constantly failing. So I didn't have to quit my business, it turned out. It just got healthier.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. And it was really beautiful to be able to witness that process too. And so, this program that I do is not a cookie cutter type thing. It's really using the traditions and the perennial teachings that have really that have informed my life for the last 30-ish, years, that I've grappled with, and that, I've had to interface with, and that I seek refuge from. Because, just because, I'm a contemplative teacher, I'm human. And so I still have difficulties, legitimate suffering still comes my way. What I'm trying to do with all of the studies and the way that I go is to not manufacture unnecessary suffering. In the AA tradition, we call it the deliberate manufacturing of misery. How often do we do that? And even when we've got a good working ego, and we're kind people, and we do all these, our bills are in order, everything is going well, we don't realize how much energy is being wasted with mind stuff that's stealing our energy and just skewing things in a way that just doesn't leave them to the freedom that they are, or maybe we should say the suchness, the richness. There's really not a word for
I
it,
love that,
but to be able to,
though, suchness. That's a
yeah,
great word.
suchness.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I also want to just kind of go back to you saying the deliberate manufacturing of
Yeah.
misery. Because what I see a lot of, we'll say, like, I've been in this industry for over a decade, and the things you'll see, as you know, when you're in the self-help, spiritual, personal development world are beyond. And so I was so grateful to find teachers who I could see their life and see the way that things go in their life, to see like, oh, I can really trust this person. And what I had seen prior to, not that everyone I've ever known has been terrible, but I see a lot, I should say, is mastermind type vibes,
Yeah.
type energy that says, if you could just be like me or believe these things, everything will go right for you.
No,
And it's really seductive. It's
yeah.
really seductive.
The truth is it might go very wrong.
Right.
And we have to open up to that. We have to allow that
Mm-hmm.
possibility,
Yeah.
because, I don't want to make mastermind wrong. There's, everything has its place.
Yes.
Everything does. And it's right and good to be able to be, to have a life that is able to, care for you so that you can also care for others and do all of that. But when it's just coming from a place of, if I achieve enough, then, if I this, then, that's the downfall, the pitfall of mastermind or any really self-help, self-development. At some point, they just come to an end of their usefulness. Like, I won't say usefulness, we've just come to the end of what you can exhaust from them.
Mm-hmm.
And then they can't, because they can only go so far.
Yeah, because
Because
what
they
happens
work,
then when grief
yeah,
comes or a parent dies or a tragedy
yeah,
happens, how are you going to manifest your way out of that experience?
no,
It's so human.
they don't address that. And so all the money in my bank account or lack thereof at different times, doesn't matter. All this, all that, all this is not what's going to come up and support me and hold me and inform me and care for me in those times. They don't address the deeper issues of life and death and love, grief, betrayal, failure. They don't address that. And so, and that's where I think where this work is so important, is
Mm-hmm.
that, we need to have tools and really a foundational center within ourselves to know how to meet these things that are absolutely a part of life. A lot of times people think that if I get everything right and everything's in order, like, from a yoga standpoint, karma, if I only do good things, nothing bad is going to happen. And they think that they can keep life from happening, but that's what we call, legitimate suffering. It's going to happen no matter how good you are. It's life is going to happen, which means all of it. You get to experience all of it. I think that's a fundamental reason I wanted to go to a year, because in a year's time, no one gets out of a year unscathed. You know what I mean? No,
Mm-hmm.
nobody gets
Something
through
hard
a
is going to
year.
happen.
Something is going to happen. Now, it's different degrees for people and the forms change, but we don't get through a year unscathed.
Yeah.
And so it allows me the opportunity to really support people through all of those situations,
Yeah.
so that they get turned back, because it's natural that when that really, something really big happens like that, we forget everything we know, everything we've been standing
Yes.
on, and we start grasping and seeking. We want, we start that incessant reactive thing, and
Yeah.
it's natural. It's part of our, part of the way things work. And so to be able to have somebody that can hold you in a careful way in that and keep you from going in that direction and keep returning you back to yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that that deeper, those deeper parts of us, but also connect you back to a higher power.
Yeah.
You know, that divine connection, which can, sometimes that's the only thing that's going to help me in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's
What you said about the center. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, please.
Well, what you said about like having a strong center to stand upon, I think I thought I knew. There's so many things I thought I knew what it meant before really sitting with it and learn to digest the emotion, learn to alchemize the emotion that was coming up, the automatic, like something bad is happening, so I'm gonna start doing. That's really my way. It's not everyone's way.
Right.
And I have observed that the moments of my life, you know, since doing this work and using the tools of self-observation, the moments in my life where I look as like the pinnacle of happiness and success was all a response to tragedy I was unwilling to feel.
Yeah.
All of it. And it made me really believe that I needed the tragedy to propel me forward. Like it was almost like I learned I didn't really believe I could have success unless I was using, you know, all of the difficulty, never feeling it, but fueling the achievement.
Yes.
And I realize now how much chaos my life had to be in all of the time to be moving from that place.
Right.
And now the ability to like, it all seems so simple, right? And even boring to like,
Yes.
I just create when I want to. I trust that if I've hurt someone and they have a conversation with me, that I can handle that.
Yes.
I can make difficult decisions. I can go through breakups and fall, like all of these different things, and be okay and not enter into so far into patterns that will lead me away from myself. That like strong center of like, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is trust ultimately. Like I trust that I will be okay.
Right.
I don't need anything outside of myself anymore.
Right.
And of course I love the luxuries, you know, I love the nice things outside of myself. I don't need them
Likewise.
to be okay. Right? I'm like, I love having beautiful things, and it was so refreshing also to hear I didn't have to again blow up my life or give up those things, but realize that they weren't going to catch me. It was something inside.
Yes.
And so I want to hear a little bit about spiritual sobriety as like a concept, because that's really what you're going to be guiding people through. And I'm referencing pieces of it, but like as a concept in a program, what can people expect when they go through this?
Yeah. Well, first, when they hear the word sobriety, they think that potentially that they're going to have abstinence. And this isn't about addressing, like, unless you have a problem, like, you know, or had alcoholism in your makeup, like I do, you know, I can help you with that. But that's not, if you don't have a problem with these things, that's not my business. I'm not concerned with that. And so sobriety, what is sobriety? It's that, it's about not needing what you're talking about. If I've got to add to, I've got to get more, I've got to shine up the system, right? Sobriety is about really being able to come and be with what is. You know, that's what being sober is. I don't need anything from outside to help me to be able to actually access and be with reality as it is now. You know, fully present, fully aware. And that includes the fact that at that moment, I will prefer it to be otherwise. You know, I may not be liking this. I may be having all kinds of emotions, but it's about that and, not either or. It's that and. And I can fully be with what is happening and trust in this space. Sometimes it's, you know, that liminal space where it's just like, I don't know, like there's nothing to do. You're right. Sometimes there is nothing to do but be itself. And that does sound boring, but it's actually, you know, really quite, I don't know the word for it. Yes, there it is again. You know, and so ideally, you know, I hope people come, you know, if they come to the program, we start on retreat, and that's just in 3 weeks. That's March 21st, 22nd. Yeah, it's on a Friday, in 3 weeks. You know, I understand if not everybody can do that, but it's a really, my goodness, it's a really good way to just get really grounded in the group and the intimacy of the group and lay a really solid foundation here, utilizing the land. I know you spend a lot of time on the land. You know how healing it is and how amazing it is. And then we go into the group container online, and we've got a platform for that. It's private, and we've got a lot of support for that. And we meet twice a month. It's very simple in that we start off each month with a 2-hour teaching that over time will allow for feedback and sharing and all of that. And then halfway in the middle of the month, it's a Q&A time. It's an hour for them to actually ask questions like, this has been happening, and how do I actually address this to me? But I give a lot of one-on-one support too. This is not just about live teaching and going online and listening to lectures. This is a very intimate, hands-on, personal experience. I know that and you still have access to me this way because you're also a dear person to me. But everybody did during this program of like, you're in crisis, I'm on a call with you.
Yeah.
And it's not like, oh, you've got your calls for the month. It's like, no, I'm available. This is a commitment I make, and I'm not really concerned about how much time it's going to end up taking from me to be able to participate in this journey with everybody. So we just go really gradually and elegantly, laying the foundation, learning how to work with the mind to be able to really end up through the process, transformative, have it be a transformative experience, not just an educational one.
Yeah, it was certainly that for me.
Yeah.
And then I
And it
kept finding
includes another
excuses to
retreat.
come back. Oh, can you say that again? I'm sorry.
Halfway through, everybody will come back on retreat for much deeper work, because the real deep work, can only happen really in person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So
the horses are there.
The horses, yeah. We do that after everybody's really built that trust and that container is really solid.
Yeah.
So that's half.
That is beautiful. Yeah. It was what I was mentioning when I was like hopped in when you were talking was that I kept finding excuses to keep coming. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to just keep coming even after, because I only did the 6 month and I was just so eager to keep being there. And I mean, if anyone has been following my work closely, they know that I reference the work that you and Matt do at the Shala very often. I mean, I think I've done just about everything that I could have up until now. There's other things I can do now, but even the yoga teacher training last year I did through the Shala. So I'm just putting pieces together for folks who might have watched me be at the farm at different times and reference you on our podcast episode. But I think one of the most profound things that I continue to fall back on from our time together, and that you'll be incorporating, that we didn't go into too much, was Enneagram as a tool for contemplation. And I'm curious, before we go, just for you to speak on your way of using the Enneagram, because just mentioning it doesn't feel like enough given the way it's thrown around on these days.
So I want to try how to be quick with this. So let me just say, the Enneagram is not a personality tool. Okay, it's not like a Myers-Briggs. And it certainly can be used that way, but it's not its ultimate purpose. And so its ultimate purpose is about, not about getting better at our personalities and all the different things, but it's really about seeing where we're asleep. I think that's what, the easiest way to say, how is it that I'm asleep? And so, hang on, somebody's coming to the door. I'm surprised the dogs didn't go crazy. So where is the center of gravity, for each person? And so each type really shows like, how is it that your life experience, your formative years developed and formed into a particular strategy and a personality for you, Madison, that now is how you interface with the world. That it's not wrong. Actually, it can be your gift, but it's also your curse at the same time, because it's what skews reality and keeps you from accessing more information that would give you a lot more freedom. Freedom to actually act rather than to react, We talk about being able to take responsibility for my decisions and my behavior. So what does that mean? I have to have the ability to respond, which means I have to know how I can't help but immediately uh, uh, behave. Those automatic, mechanical, unconscious, fast as lightning behaviors that happen that feel very true. Now they're real and they're not a mistake, but they're not, I wouldn't say, completely true. And so we really look at the Enneagram from this larger lens of it's another way that shows us how it is that we are asleep to ourselves, unconscious, ego-driven, mechanical beings. And when we put it that way, who wants to stay like that?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and you're not going to get rid of that. Let me just say that. That doesn't go anywhere, but you said something really important. We don't believe it anymore. And so if I know it, if I can see it for what it is, then I don't have to feed that. Matter of fact, that's not where my attention needs to go. My attention needs to go in feeding the thing that has been underpinning that, which has been here from the beginning of time, which is my essence itself. Can I turn my attention to feeding that? Because that is what's been here the whole time. It has not been what I've been accessing. So that can then write the relationship of my ego to everything else.
Yeah.
And so I hope that made some sense.
It did. And I think maybe essence and suchness are a certain kind of connection. I'm like hearing that, right? Like this connection to essence,
Yes.
it grows and creates a sense of suchness. I call it the muchness.
Yes.
It's an
that.
essence quality, right? There's an essence quality to it.
It is.
I
And
know
it's free.
Can you say that again?
It's free.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be acquired. And that's the difference between contemplative paths and masterminds. Masterminds, you're having to acquire things. You're having to add to. This isn't the work of adding to. This isn't the work of descending and moving through. That which is actually free and always here.
Yeah. It really does feel like there was a before doing this and an after, and also it's now a part of the process. So it's not like that doing the program was like, and then now I'm different. It's now I have the tools to keep going in this way, in a way that keeps opening me up to life. And sometimes I look at, the choices I'm making now, like, oh my gosh, I would be so afraid to be making these choices previously, but there's a deeper sense of trust in God in life, but also that, like, even if it doesn't go as planned, like I will be okay.
Well, and even if it doesn't go on as planned, I can trust that this is the way it was supposed to go. How do I know? Because this is the way it did.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
something can be gained from that. Something will be learned from that. And I have the tools now to discern that. So it is an ongoing process.
Yeah. Is there anything else before we go that you want people to know about spiritual sobriety, about the work itself?
I think it would just be, you know, I know that this type of work speaks to everybody because I know we're not separate. No, we're not different. So what I mean, I know that we all have longing, deep longing. I know that there's times where we just feel like I'm just doing everything and yet there's something still missing. I know that we all find ourselves there, right? And my invitation is to, instead of getting another new distraction, right? Come home to yourself. Come home. And why not now? Because eventually we all find ourselves back at this place. I mean, how many times we look, no matter what I do, I find myself back at this place. So why not now? Quit wasting time, right? And be open and willing to start living.
Mm-hmm.
It's time. No one gets out alive.
Mm-hmm.
We act like we do.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is a really rich experience. It's a very respectful experience. It's a very kind and caring experience that really honors people. I feel certain that I can say that. I know, you've expressed that in all the different words. It allowed everything that you brought, all the messiness, but all of the beauty at the same time. And we just learned how to sort through it and access it and mine it for what it really was, rather than being in the constant dualistic relationship of that's wrong and this is right. That was this and this is that.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's all of it. So, that's the main thing is I've got you. Um, I love this work. It's the work that's important to me that I'm called to do now. Separate or addition to Circle Yoga Shala, and it would be a privilege. And I'm not sure why anybody would wait.
Mm-hmm. Where can people, obviously your Instagram, which will be linked,
Yeah.
is your name, but where can people find more information about the program, and what does that look like to get in contact with you?
Yeah. You can go to hollykreps.com, and that's KREPPS. You can get that through the Instagram. And on my website, there's a page called Spiritual Sobriety. And there's a lot more information there. That's where you can book a call with me. We can just have a chat. And even if you don't do spiritual sobriety, I'm sure that we can connect in a way that you can get something of some direction. Like, okay, you're not ready for all this, but can I help you to be able to access what would be a next good step for you right now? I'm certainly not the answer for everybody, and so I'm really, I love collaborations. And so I'm happy to help point people in the direction that's appropriate for them right now. So jump on a call with me. There's no risk involved in that.
Yeah, and there's so much at the farm too happening this
Yes,
year, in addition to
yes,
spiritual sobriety, that
yes.
I always find my way to figure out what I'm going to do every year.
Well,
So
thank you. Yeah, we really care
anything else?
about serving people,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Now you can't get rid of me.
Well,
Now I'm
who would
like,
want to?
I'm like, I'm gonna keep coming back.
Yeah.
Anything else before we go?
I don't believe so. I just want to thank you so much. You've become really important to us, me and Matt, and you're certainly special to me. I love the time. I appreciate the trust that you've put in me all these years and what that's done for our relationship. Um, and this is the way my relationships go with people. When we do this work, we become friends, we become family in a way. We're always here for each other. So I guess that's the last thing is when the program's over, I don't go away. You don't go away. We just have a different relationship. We're peers, right? We're support. We just have a different relationship. And so I'm still available. We just have other ways to connect, which is more, outside of a formal program and into more of a relational, family, not to sound weird,
Yeah,
but
but I
yeah,
think it is really important that some spiritual teachings go this way because of
yeah,
how disconnected a lot of healing relationships can be. And I understand the reasons for those boundaries in certain therapeutic contexts.
certainly.
And I know for me, it was really healing to learn to be in relationship without having to pay someone only. Like, so
Yes,
there's like times of like service and giving
yeah,
back and all of that. And there's also like, can I trust that I don't have to pay this person to be in my life?
that's
Like there's
right.
also that. And
Yes,
so weeding in and out of
yes.
that dynamic, I think you do a really beautiful job of like being a practitioner of this work and then knowing when we're just sitting on the porch.
Yeah, knowing when it's just like we're here as human beings helping each other, and when, hey, this is actually something that I'd like for you to value my time. And I'm
Right,
pretty, I'm
exactly.
pretty clear about that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think that clarity also helps because me, I'm like, I would just be I would just be doing what I do. I won't go into all of it, but
Yeah.
you know me.
Yes.
Um,
Thank
yeah,
you so much.
thank you so much for doing
Thank
this. And I just want to
you
name
so much.
also there's a podcast episode with you on my podcast. If anyone just wants to hear more from you, they can go to your page. We did a podcast episode on projection. That's really lovely.
Yeah.
And yeah, you and Matt mean so much to me as well. So it's just an honor to get to chat with you in this way and to share you with the people who have watched. And I also just want to give a shout out to, I see Lisa made a comment about emotional sobriety was a whole different level of sobriety. Yeah. And then Susan was here and said hello.
Okay.
So I don't know if you saw that comment.
I didn't.
So awesome. Well, let's exit. I'll post this to the feed and people can rewatch it. And I'll see you this weekend.
Lovely.
All right. Thanks, Holly.
Okay.
Bye.